Okay, so Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. Some of our clients are still transitioning from previous versions like Adobe Acrobat 9, 10, or 11. So I am going to spend just a couple of minutes going over the new user interface. For those of you who have been working on Adobe Acrobat DC for a little while, you're probably already familiar with this new interface, but I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes on it. So when you open Adobe Acrobat, this is the home page that you land on. So the interface definitely looks different from previous versions, but just know that the tools work, if not exactly the same, very similar to the way they used to. You just need to learn how to navigate this new user interface. So on the home ribbon, and this is one of those where in the handout, they've changed the look of the home page a little bit since I've done the handout. But what's important is over here on the left, this recent list. So this is listing all the recent PDFs I have opened. So I can quickly open a PDF from my recent list. Now, for those of you who use a document management system, if your PDFs are in the document management system, you will not be able to open them from this recent list. I know this for a fact with iManage for sure, but this PDF that I'm going to open here in just a second is actually stored on my desktop, so I can open it from my recent list. For those of you who are on a document management system, you can still go to the File menu and open, and you'll have additional choices. Like if you're on iManage, you'll have an extra thing that says open from iManage or open from whatever document management system you're working on. But if it's saved locally somewhere on your computer, you can open it from this recent list. And then you'll see right up here at the top, it's giving you some of the tools that perhaps people use most often. So your home, what it's beneficial here is finding recent PDFs. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open the handout that I sent to all of you. So I double clicked on it, opened it, and notice how it opened itself in a tab up here. So I'm going to go back to my home tab, and if I wanted to open another PDF, like here's one called Contact List, it opens itself in a second tab. So when you open the various PDFs, you can have multiple PDFs open at one time, and you can easily access them by clicking on one of these tabs. All right, so that's the home page. Now there's another tab here called Tools. So Adobe has taken all of its tools and put them on one page. So you can access any of these tools from the Tools page. Now, you'll notice here, and they kind of put them in, they categorize them. So you've got tools that are dealing with create and edit. You've got some tools for form and signature, share and review, protect and standardize. And some of you may have more tools and some of you may have less. It really just depends on the version that you purchased. So notice how over here on the right, this right panel that I'm looking at, this is called, well, I call it the shortcut, the shortcut list to my favorite tools that I work on all the time. And this list is going to be super valuable when you're actually working in a PDF. So I recommend you get the tools you work the most, you get a shortcut to it here in this list. And the way that you do that, do you notice how a lot of these tools, if it says open, and this one says open, organize pages says open, that means I've got the shortcut to it over here in my right panel. But if there's one that says add, and edit PDF is obviously a tool you are going to be using frequently. So I definitely recommend you add a shortcut to this tool to your right pane. And to do that, just click the drop down and say Add Shortcut. So now notice over here on the right, I've got my shortcut to my Edit PDF tool, and that status is now changed from Add to Open. So that's what these different add and opens mean. But all of your tools live on this tools page, and you can access your favorite ones from the shortcut list over here on in this right panel. So that's it. You got your Home tab, your Tools tab, right? So now let's go back into our actual PDF and start working with some of these tools that we're going to work in. And by the way, notice how up here at the top, this is kind of your standard toolbar that will always be visible to you. So you've got your select, which page you can go to, your scaling view, and other. I've added some tools to mine, sticky note, highlighter, select, and insert text. And I'll show you later on how you can add buttons to this toolbar up here at the top. So when you're in a PDF, this navigation now should be looking relatively similar. You have a left pane over here, and you can collapse or expand this pane. And what I mean by that, if you all see this little arrow that I'm circling here, and if I select it, so now I've collapsed where my thumbnails are. So I get a lot of calls from people saying, oh my gosh, I don't know how to access my thumbnails. Well, just expand this left window pane over here, and then your bookmark, your thumbnails, and this should look similar to previous versions, right? You've got your thumbnails, you've got your bookmarks, and if you attach things to a PDF, you've got your attachments. So this part should look the same to you. It's how you insert your pages, and we'll be going over some of these tools in a little bit. And then obviously in the center is your PDF, your document. And then again, over here on the right, this is the list of tools that I have shortcuts to. Now I can collapse this right pane as well by clicking on the collapse. And then it just shows me the icons of those tools, or I can expand it again, and I can actually get the description of what those tools are. So, and then I know Acrobat, there's a lot of chatter about having to constantly sign in to Adobe Acrobat, and typically that happens when they send out some sort of an update. So your login setting is up here in the very far right, this little blue circle, right? So that's where you can set some of your preferences and you actually sign in, because you can't use these tools unless you sign in to Adobe Acrobat. So you just need to know your email address and your password to actually sign in. All right, so with that being said, let's actually get started with some functions here. So the first thing I'm going to start with is creating a PDF, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close out the PDFs I currently have open. I don't need to work on those right now, but I am going to go so let's see, I want this one. We're going to create a PDF. So my sample is using a pleading, right? So this is in Microsoft Word. And then I'm going to point out that in my pleading sample here, all of my headings are using a heading style. And that comes into play because when you convert a Word document to a PDF, it will tag anything that's in your heading styles. It will create a bookmark for it in your PDF. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. But you have to convert it to PDF, not print it to PDF. So creating PDFs. I know a lot of people just tend to go File, Print, and then they choose their Adobe PDF, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say Print. and it's going to ask me to name it. So I'm going to put it in my webinars, Adobe webinar files. Now for this one, I'm going to put the word printed at the end of it, because this is the one that I converted using the file print method, because I'm going to show you the difference when we do it another way. So we're going to call that one printed. Okay, so it opened up. Here's my PDF. Now I'm going to look at my bookmarks, and I have none, right? It did not automatically create bookmarks from my headings that were in a heading style. That's because I simply printed it to PDF. I'm going to go back to my Word document, and this time I'm going to use my Acrobat add-in up here, the tool, and I'm going to say create PDF. And you're going to see it's going to do a few more things. So this time I'm going to say converted, right? Because we're creating a PDF. So I'm going to add the word converted, and we'll say save. Now see how it's doing a few more things. You're going to see it's going to start saying updating tags or something like that. So this one is my converted PDF. Now I'm going to go to my bookmarks and look at this. It had created a bookmark based on all of my headings that used a heading style. So it's kind of like a mini table of contents, plus it allows me to go to that section very easily. And I believe some courts now also in certain PDFs, you need to bookmark, I don't know, is it your exhibit pages or something like that? So if you actually put your heading, if your exhibit page, for instance, starts at the top and it has the word Exhibit A, if you put that paragraph in some sort of a style, then you can tell it to, for that style to also create a bookmark. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here's my Word document, right? So I am going to, if I go to my Acrobat, and right here, this Preferences tab, bookmarks. So by default, Adobe says anything in these styles, make a bookmark for it. And again, if you have and it's looking at all the styles that I have in this document, if you use a style, to create the heading Exhibit A and you want that to be bookmarked, then just find the style. I would create a separate style for your exhibits, right? Maybe it's called Exhibit or something, and then you would put a check mark in that style so that when you converted to a PDF, Exhibit A will be bookmarked. Okay. Now, if you have, let me go back to my printed PDF. So this is my printed PDF. Since I'm talking about bookmarks, I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit because I'm not following the order of the handout attached exactly, but since I'm talking about bookmarks, I'll show you how to create them manually if you have a PDF that does not have the bookmarks, like the Robertson opposition to MSJ printed, right? So if I need to add bookmarks for any reason, I would select the heading or whatever it is you want to bookmark. And then right here on your bookmarks tab, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can just click on the add bookmark, or you could use a shortcut key of Control B for bookmark, and it will add the bookmark over there. So that's how you would manually create a bookmark. So you can go through all the headings or whatever it is you want to create to have be a bookmark. Just select it, choose add or Control B. So that's how to deal with bookmarks and also how to create a PDF, right? When I create PDFs, my preferred method is using the add-in, creating a PDF, because then it creates my own bookmarks, less work for me to deal with. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I will close my PDFs here. So let's say you want to, I will say yes, you want to reduce, I'm going to open up my handout again, and you need to reduce the file size. When I do it, I typically just do a save as other, right? So I have the PDF open. I'm going to go to the upper left corner to File, and I'm just going to say Reduce File Size, and choose where I want to save it. So let's go back up to my desktop, my webinars, Acrobat, webinar file. So, and then I'm just going to put the word, just because I know, I don't want to mess with my original, reduced. And it does some things, and it just kind of compresses, the pictures you have in here. It just does things, and reduced it from 2.39 megabytes to 1.36. And this is kind of a relatively newer feature that it tells you what it was and what it reduced it down to. So that's kind of a handy feature to have. All right, I also want to talk about extracting content from a PDF. I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. I'm going to open up my standard one. So, and what I mean by extracting, so I'm going to go to my page thumbnails over here on the left. I often have clients ask me, hey, when you train on Adobe Acrobat or whatever other thing I'm training on, what topics do you cover? What I generally do is I'll open up my handout here and I'll extract my table of contents, right? And I just say, hey, here's a table of contents from my handout. So these are the topics. Yeah, I could do a file save as and delete every other page, but it's just simpler to extract. So I am going to go ahead and do that. So, and we're going to use our options tool right here, and we're going to go to extract pages. So here it's asking me page what to what. I actually want to extract page 2 and 3. So I'm going to say 2 to 3. Do I want to delete the pages after extracting? No. Do I want to extract pages as separate files? No. What this would mean is page 1 of my TOC would be a separate PDF than the second page. So I don't want them separate. And so now I'm just going to say OK. And then notice how it created a new PDF, a new tab for me up here, Pages from Adobe. And all it is my table of contents. And at this part, I would do a file save as, because I would name it. I would name it TOC for Adobe Acrobat DC Professional. So, I would name it whatever I want to name it. So that's how easy it is to actually extract content. If you want to, and I'm going to go ahead and close that, add a page or a file to a PDF. So I extracted. Now let's say I want to add. Again, it's the same options tool here, and you can insert pages from a file. So if I say insert from file, maybe I want, and I know you wouldn't do this, but I'll add another cover page just because I have a separate one here. So I'm going to double click on cover page, and it's going to say, where do you want it? I'm going to put it as the first page, okay? So this is going to be location after first page. I want to put it before my first page. So you're going to see it's going to add it up here. So, yep, here's, and notice how that's an old one. That's for Acrobat X. So I just inserted a single page. If the file I was inserting was multiple pages, it would insert all of those pages. So it's your options tool where you can delete pages, right? So if I want to delete that page that I just inserted, page 1 of 1, I can easily delete it that way. So that's extracting, inserting, deleting pages. Let's talk about converting a PDF back to Microsoft Word, okay? Which in most instances, it does a really nice job of converting back to Word. And I said most instances because it does a terrible job if you try to take a pleading that is a PDF and making it back to Word. So I'm going to show you both. So here's my handout that I'm referencing today. And if I want to put this back into Word format, I'm going to come up to File, and it's going to be an export to. So you're not going to see the word convert up here, even though people say, how do you convert a PDF to Word? You're actually exporting it to Word. So I can choose Word, and I'm going to say Word document. And then it's going to ask me where I want to save it. I want to save it in my webinar. I'll go ahead and keep the same name because it's going to be a DOCX. And it's doing its thing to actually export. Now it does add a whole bunch of section breaks and those sort of things to the document, which can be kind of a pain to go through, but in a pinch, it will get you your product. So you can see here, continuous section break, and it's probably going to be, there's another one right here. So it's not the ideal way to actually get your PDF text into a Word document because it does add a lot of these section breaks and other formatting, but in a pinch, it will do. And it did a pretty nice job, I think, of taking this handout and putting it into Word. So let's see what it looks like when I take a pleading, because that's a whole nother story. So I'm going to take this converted, right? The Robertson opposition that we just recently converted to a PDF. You know, it's the one with all the bookmarks. So let's take this one, File, Export to Word. And it's going to be terrible because it's going to take all this line numbering. And put it, we all know the line numbering in a pleading in Word is embedded in the header. But when you take it from a PDF and back to Word, it just puts it on the top of the document, not in the header. So you can see those numbers are in every single line, and it's just ugly. There's a paragraph return at the end of it. So there is absolutely terrible when it converts. If you do need to convert a pleading PDF to Word, I would recommend you use the crop tool, which would be to crop out the actual lines, and so you only have the text. You're still going to deal with a return at the end of every line, but what is the lesser of two evils? So pleadings do not export well back to Microsoft Word. So just wanted to demonstrate that to all of you. All right, so we did added pages, we extracted, deleted, rearrange. I'm assuming probably most of you know how to rearrange pages. The way I do it is in this thumbnail view, and then you just select. So if I wanted to move my table of contents for whatever reason to the bottom of my pleading, I can tell they're selected. Then I just use my mouse and move it down to wherever it is that I want to rearrange or move them. So if I want to go to the end, I can just drop them down there, and you can see my table of contents moved. So pretty simple to rearrange. Or if you're just doing one, drag and drop where you want to rearrange. Pretty simple. All right. So we talked about bookmarks, how to add them manually. So let's talk about links in a document. Let me find another sample that I want to open. Let me go to contact list 2. So you can have if you have a PDF, oh shoot, they're in here, and you want to turn an web address or into a link like I do here. See how if I put my cursor on it, it's identifying that it's an actual web link and I can click on it and go to that website. So in order to do that, let me find a list where it's not done. Okay, so see, oh shoot, I did it there as well. I thought I cleaned these up. Bear with me 1 second. I'm going to undo the link. And then I will show you exactly what I did. Okay. Let's see, file, save. Let me get out of it and let's get back into it. Okay. So, still there. Okay. Oh, no. All right. I'll just forget about this one and show you how to do it and undo it. Okay. So this already has the links, but I'll show you how to add the links to it. And this would be a really great time to start showing you how to find other tools, right? We added our favorite tools to this list, but let's say I don't remember where my linking tool is. That is where this search up here really, really becomes super handy. So in this search tools, if I type the word link, do you see how it's saying, oh, the link function is in your edit PDF toolbar. So if I click on that edit PDF, it brings up a whole new toolbar for me right up here at the top. So I can edit, I can add text, and here's my link. And then when I'm done with this tool, I simply close it and I'm back to my shortcut list. So again, put in what it is you're looking to do. That's your edit PDF and do it. So do you see how it's already kind of putting a box around some data in here? So the link tool right here, you can do a manual link, or you can have Adobe go and find, auto-create web links from URLs. So, and it tells you it cannot be undone. Would you like to proceed? So if I say yes and I say all, a total of 4 web links were added to this document. So that's when, see how I now put my cursor on that link and it can hyperlink me to that actual web page. And to remove the links, we're just going to say remove web links. It's going to say it's going to be undone. We're going to say okay. And it didn't, I'm not sure why that's not removing them, but that should have worked. And I think that's, oh, removed. So it said it found 4, all. Huh. Let's see, maybe I need to do a save as. Let's go to my different folder. We'll go to my webinar files and contacts list. Let's see if saving it will remove them. Links removed. No, they're still there. So, all right, you know, in every demonstration, there's something that doesn't seem to work. I'll have to do some research in that, why that's not working, because I know that is what I've done in the past, and it states right there to remove the web links. So my apologies for that. I'll have to figure out why that's not working. If you want to create a manual link, so if I go back to I'll go back to this one. To create a link manually, so I'm going to go link, bring up my edit PDF tool, link, and to add or edit. So if I want to do it manually, I'm going to click on add, and then it's going to ask me to put a rectangle around what you want to turn into a link, right? And you can do the appearance of it here, and this is where you tell the link action. So a link can actually open another file, right? So it doesn't have to be a web link. And if you're going to have it open a file, you have to make sure whoever you're sending this PDF is on the same system of you, so they have access to that file location. Or you can tell it to open a web page. And if I click next, it's asking for the URL here. So if I go ahead and put it in there, then it added that link with the rectangle around it, because that's how the properties that I had listed were shown. So there is more information on links in your actual handout, but I'm not sure why the remove was not working. My apologies for that. All right, so let's get on to headers and footers. Okay, that's always a good one for people. So I have an exhibit right here, Exhibit A to Opposition to Motion for Summary Judgment. So it's a made-up stock purchase agreement. So I want to add the words Exhibit A, page, whatever, in the footer. So I want to add a footer to this PDF. Now again, if you're not sure where the header and footer tools are, in your search up here, just type header or footer, and that is once again in my Edit PDF toolbar. And so on your Edit PDF toolbar up here, it's right here, header and footer tab. So I want to add one to it, and it brings up my header footer dialog box. So here's if you want to add a header, right? You can put it in the left, center, right. So it's obviously not as flexible as a header or footer that you can put into Microsoft Word, right? So in this instance, I'm going to put in the center footer text. So I want it in the footer, and I want the word Exhibit A hyphen page, and then I want to reference a page number. And I can do that right here by clicking on Insert Page Number. So, and we can see a sample of it right down here, Exhibit A, page 1. If you need to increase the font or change the font, you can do that right up here. So it's using Arial. Let's say I make it 10, so it's a little bit bigger. And then where the location is, if it seems too far down the page, then from the bottom, I can move it up, right, just by increasing my bottom, or I'll just go ahead and put it back down. But this is how you can adjust where, how far from the bottom of the page it is. Now, a little tip here, and I wish they didn't hide this, but I think that's why they put it a hyperlink here in blue. To me, this one's pretty important. And what I do is I like to check both of these. Shrink a document to avoid overwriting the document's text and graphics. So if you happen to have a page that the text goes way to the bottom of the page, your Exhibit A, page 1, is going to stamp right over the text, and it's going to be hard to read. So shrink the document to avoid overwriting will shrink the text of that page so that when it stamps your Exhibit A, it won't be stamping it right on the text. Keep position and size of header and footer text constant when printing on different pages. This just kind of keeps it a little bit of a cleaner look. So I always go into Appearance Options and change those two features. If you only want a certain range of pages, you can choose that as well. But in this instance, I'm going to have it put it on every single page. So with that, I'm going to say OK. And then as I scroll down, there's Exhibit A, page 1, Exhibit A, page 2. So I've now added a footer to my PDF. And if you need to remove it, you can just go back up to header and footer and say remove, and it will completely remove that header and footer. So pretty simple. And you're going to see the same similar dialog box when we start bait stamping. So I'm going to save this PDF because I do want the Exhibit A in it, because when I do combining a few PDFs, that is going to be one of the samples that I use, which is what I'm coming to next. Combine files into a single PDF. Let me close all of these. Okay. I'll leave that one open. Okay. So let's say I have my Robertson opposition to MSJ converted, and I want to combine my declaration and my Exhibit A. So I want all three of these separate PDFs to be in a single PDF, right? So, and you do not have to have the file open, by the way, okay? So I don't have any of those files open. So over here in the search, again, if I don't know, it's actually in my Create PDF tool, but if you didn't know, I could type combine, and so we can click on the Combine Files wizard. So it's saying add files, so we want to add all three of those files that we're going to combine. So when I click on add, it says, okay, so go find those documents. So I want Exhibit A, I want the declaration, and I want the opposition. I want all three of those. So here it is. But that's not the order I want it combined in. I want the opposition first, which is this one, Robertson opposition. So I'm just going to move it to 1. And then I want the declaration next, and then I want my exhibit. So I can certainly rearrange the order that they're going to show up in the PDF. And then really all I do is say combine, and it creates a binder. So let's look at our thumbnails. So here's our opposition, and then here's our declaration, and then here's our exhibit. So and then you'll want to do a file save as, right, and call this whatever you would call it, but it actually turns itself into a binder. So that's putting 3 separate files into a single PDF. Now there's something also called creating a portfolio, where it doesn't combine all the file, and I'm going to go ahead and close this. It doesn't combine, and by the way, this portfolio piece is not in your handout. My apologies for that. I just have not actually added it to the handout. But it's really 3 simple steps, and I'll go over it slowly if you want to write it down. So it's going to be the same tool. We're going to go to Create PDF. And we're talking about multiple files, so I'm going to click on multiple files. And here's that combine, which is what we just did. We combined files. But instead, I want to create what's called a portfolio. And a portfolio, as it describes it right here, it's an aggregate, and you can organize multiple types of files into a PDF package, and you'll see what that means here in a second. So I'm going to click on the Create PDF Portfolio. I will say next, and then I add the file. So up here at the upper left, I'm going to add files, and then I'm going to go to my Docs for Bait Stamping and Portfolio. Instead, I'm going to take all these different handouts I have and make a portfolio out of these. So I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to say OK. And I could rearrange the order, right? This looks super similar to the combining that we just did, but if you needed to, you could rearrange the order. And now all I do is say Create. So do you notice how up here it doesn't say binder, instead it says portfolio. And then over here on the left, instead of it being one PDF with all of these thumbnails, so when I select on the the first tab, which is the best of time savers, and my thumbnails are related only to that PDF. And then I can click on my next PDF. So kind of, again, it made this package, this portfolio. Then I can look at the thumbnails related to that PDF. So it just kind of combined these 4 PDFs. It kept them separate, but put them in this nice portfolio or in this package. And then obviously at this time, and I think it's easy for people to identify what it is instead of combining all 4 of these documents into a single PDF and them having to scroll through all the thumbnails to find which one they really want. It's just cleaner when it's done in an actual portfolio. And then obviously you would do a file save as and call it whatever it is that you wanted to save it as. So I will go ahead and do a save as. We're going to go webinar files, and I will call it handout portfolio. And there you go. All right, so that's portfolios. All right, so we're going to go through redacting and bait stamping. This should take me about another 5, 6, 7 minutes. And again, if you guys start having any questions, feel free to start sending them through that question panel. So let's talk about redacting. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and let me open up another PDF here. So it's just an agreement. Redacting, there's 2 ways that you can do redacting. You can manually redact words at a time, or you can search for redaction. So again, if you're not sure where the tool is, I'm going to say redact, and redacting is in my redact toolbar, which is right up here. And this does look a little different than the handout, okay? The handout that I sent you, there's a separate thing up here marked for redaction. It no longer has that. Instead of, it's more of just a 2-step process. So you have this drop down for redaction. So what you would do is you can select a word, and then once it's selected, because I'm in my redact tool, it went ahead and put the rectangle around it. And then when I'm done, I just say apply. And it will redact. I'm not going to save it yet. It will redact that one word. So that means going through your document line by line and redacting your text, right? Easy enough. But let's say I just want to redact the name Robertson throughout this entire document, okay? So I can do a search. I can do a search for Robertson and have it automatically redact all of those. So that would be under the redact text and images, and I'm going to find text and redact. And it opens the search panel over here on the left. So where would you like to search? In the current document, I want to search for a single word. I'll say that. And then let's put in Robertson, and you can do whole words or case sensitive. I'll just keep it simple. And then I'm going to say search and remove text. So it found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 instances. So if I do, in fact, want to select them, I can say check all, right? And then a little bit further down here, there's a mark checked results for redaction. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then see how it went through the entire document and put a rectangle around Robertson. Right? Then the final step is you need to apply, right? I'm going to go ahead and close this search. I want to apply this redaction. And that's when you get this box is going to permanently remove, which can, you know, it's kind of scary words, but it doesn't really permanently remove it until you save it. So that's why it is now bringing up my save as. So we're going to put it in our webinar files, and notice how it automatically added the word redacted to the name of the file. So now I can say okay. And let's go back and find, there it is right here. So if I go redacted, it redacted. And now at this point, because it was saved, you cannot undo the redaction. So that's how to search for actual phrases. There's another way you can search for redaction. And I'm going to go back to this contact list I had open earlier. You can have it search for patterns. So again, we'll find my redact tool. And we're going to go to find and search again, find text and redact. This time, instead of searching for a single word or a phrase, I'm going to search for a pattern. And notice the list of patterns you can search by, which is really cool. Social Security numbers, credit cards. The sample I have here, we're going to have it redact phone numbers. So as soon as I click on phone numbers, see how if your phone numbers are in this kind of example, then it will redact them. If you happen to use parentheses without the number 1, it will redact the 555-1212 part, but it probably wouldn't redact the area code because you didn't have a 1 in front of it. I had discovered that. So, which is probably not that big of a deal, the area code versus the whole phone number. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and say search and remove. I'm going to check them all, and then we're going to say mark checked results. So, and then I just apply, right? And it's going to ask me to save it. And it's going to automatically put the word redacted at the end of it. And here it is. So that's how you would search for a pattern, which is super duper handy. All right, so the final is adding Bates numbering, header and footer. And this is going to look very similar to the header and footer when we added the Exhibit A header and footer. So once again, you do not need to have the files open to bookmark, okay? Again, if you're not sure where your bookmark tool is, start typing Bates stamping. Using the wrong words here. Bates numbering. Just type the word Bates and it says, oh, that's in your Edit PDF tool. And it happens to be under the More tab here. So I can go to Bates numbering and we're going to add. And then, so it automatically, the document I had open, it added it. This is not one of the documents I want to bookmark. So I'm going to remove this document from my list. And instead, I'm going to go to my Add Files. And I'm going to go to my folder Documents for Bates Stamping. So I'm going to Bates stamp all 4 of these because you can do multiple PDFs at a time. So put them all in here. You can change the order if you need. If you select on one, you can move it up or down or remove it, right? Now, one important thing, and and maybe not super intuitive either, but I always go on this output options first, okay? So target folder, I'll put it in the same folder that I started with. Do you want to keep the original file names? Or do you want to add to original file names? Or what my preference, believe it or not, is, and again, this is your preferences, I'm going to replace the file names with the starting and ending Bates numbers. So I know which Bates numbers are contained in which PDF. But you can set this however you want. Now, I wish they didn't have this by default checked, override existing files. In this case, I really don't want that. So you want to make sure you uncheck that. So I'm going to go ahead and set OK. So I set my output options. Now I'm just going to say OK. So again, this looks just like the header and footer we did earlier, right? So you need to choose where you want the Bates number to go. So in this case, I'll put it in my right footer. And then I'm just going to simply click on the Insert Bates Number. And how many digits? Start with whatever number. And do you want a prefix? I'll go ahead and add a prefix of ABC, or you can add a suffix. Say okay. So I see a sample of it down there. Again, you can increase the size of the font if you want. And important here again, remember when we did the footer earlier with the exhibit, we came up here to appearance options, and I do always click shrink and keep it in the same position. So that's something I always recommend. And again, you can have it be, further away from the bottom of the page by clicking on this. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and say okay. So it went through all four files. Bates numbering has been successfully applied to 4 PDFs. So let me go back to that folder, Documents for Bates Stamping, and here they are. So this is how I said I like to replace the name of the document with the actual Bates number. So that's your call when you're creating it. Oh, and shoot, I had already done this once and I didn't remove it, so my bad. It's in here twice. I should have checked that before I did it. But anyhow, that's what your Bates number is going to look like, and it will look like that in all of your documents. All right, I'm going to do a 1-minute demo of our macro package. Please start sending me questions to answer in the questions tab, and I will get to those in literally 1 minute. So Affinity's customized template and macro package, when it's installed, clients get 3 new ribbons up here: General, Litigation, and Formatting. So what I'm going to demonstrate to you today is how to quickly create affirmative defenses in a document, which happens to be an insert language macro. I'm going to go to my affirmative defenses. It asks me if I'm in a pleading. So it's going to ask me information about the defending and complaining party. So I'll say defendants is plural, and defendants is Tom Jones and Bob Smith. I'm going to set the pronoun because it will put in the proper pronouns in the boilerplate text. And the complaining party we'll see is plaintiff and she, and that will set the proper pronoun. Then we have a list of boilerplate affirmative defenses that can be customized for a firm, but I'll go ahead and use ones from breach of contract, and I'm just going to randomly select some to include. And then I click on OK, insert affirmative defense. It's doing its thing, and it automatically added the boilerplate text. So it set the proper pronoun, defendants. It put in the first affirmative defense, which is actually automatic numbering, and numbered all of my paragraphs. So if your firm has kind of standard text for your affirmative defenses, this is a super quick way to actually create an affirmative defense in a pleading. All right, so with that being said, I am done with the demo. I promised you it would be very short, but if any of you on this are interested in a full demo of our macros, I am more than happy to set that up for you. All right, I don't see any questions. So either I did such a good job on explaining this or I confused half of you. So I don't see any questions and I don't see any chats. All right. I'll give it one more second. I still have a lot of attendees on here. All right. Well, oh, good. Here's a question. Yay. All right. How do you undo something you accidentally redacted? Well, Carrie, if you have quote unquote saved what you've redacted already, then you can't undo it. However, if you, let me bring up this PDF again. Let's go back to redact. If I happen to select this and it puts the triangle around it. You can just put your cursor on it and hit the delete key, and it will take out that triangle. So a rectangle that's around the word, just click on it and select delete. I think that's hopefully that was your question. Mary, thank you for the compliment. I'm glad you enjoyed the webinar. Renata, thank you. Gosh, I'm getting nice compliments. Lynette, oh God, there's a name that I recognize. Glad you enjoyed. Yolanda, that's another name I think I recognize. David, excellent. That's why no questions. Oh, good. Thank you. Gosh. Is it possible to have more than one signature stored on the add signature section? And I need to do more research on signatures. I can honestly say I'm not an expert on that, so I don't have an answer for you at that point because I don't use it very often. So that's not an answer I can easily answer. All right. Everything else, we're all just lots of great compliments. So thank you guys. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of the day and hope to see you at future webinars. Have a good one. Bye, everyone. Oh, how can we get a handout? Rita, there's a handout in the webinar, GoToWebinar panel. There's a little tab that says handouts. So you can select it and it will open the handout for you, right? Hopefully you're still seeing this. Yeah, and then just download it, right? So select it in the handout section, it will open and then download. All right, okay, that's it. Thank you guys, have a great day.